Good morning and welcome. My name is Peter Fishman, and I'm the child of a Holocaust survivor, Tootie Fishman, who's here today. I'm also president of Voices of Hope, an organization dedicated to Holocaust and genocide education. Thank you for joining us today at the Mandel JCC's Descendants of the Shoah Speak Up Showcase. Preparing for the next generations to use their own voices to shape the future has always been a goal of Voices of Hope. And standing here today at the 5th Speak Up is a true accomplishment and honor. Please join me in welcoming Matt and Alicia Dix.
For the past 4 weeks, this incredible group of children and grandchildren of survivors has been working on finding and crafting their stories. They participated in a workshop that was led by Matt, who will also tell a story today about his experience with Voices of Hope. And they've been working on telling stories that include part, but not all, of their parent or grandparent stories, because the task of telling the entire thing is too daunting a job. And so they've been working on choosing pieces to embed in their own stories about their own experience. It's kind of like history embedded in personal narrative. All right, we have one more story for you today, and it is Jean Lewanda. Jean is a special educator and reading teacher at Tarrafil School in Simsbury. She'll be retiring at the end of this school year. And she is looking forward to hiking, biking, and traveling again. And apparently she is going to become a bionic woman. So I don't know what that's all about, but we'll have to find out from Jean. When I asked Jean my question, if you could choose any Jewish person from history to be your imaginary friend, who would you choose and why? Jean had, I think, a brave choice. Her choice was Groucho Marx. She said, I want to ask him if he really did play cards with my husband's grandfather on the Lower East Side in the 1930s, and because I really do believe laughter is the best medicine. I think it's a brave choice because all that physical comedy is so funny, and if he's imaginary and you're just like walking around laughing all the time like a crazy person, people will wonder. So I think it's brave. Please welcome Jean Lewanda.
Make sure the mic is good for you. I think it looks just great. Maybe I'll bring it up a tiny bit. Okay, I think that's good. All right, go for it.
It's early October 1970, and my dad is turning 50. And my best friend Sue is planning her Sweet 16. And just 6 months earlier, she helped me to plan my Sweet 16. And we are on the phone for hours. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm living two lives. Monday through Friday, I'm riding the New York City subways 3 hours each day to attend a specialized high school in the Bronx, New York. But when the weekend comes, it's all about going back to the old neighborhood where I did most of my growing up, Howard Beach, Queens, because now we're living in Rego Park. Now, there's an undertone of discord in my home. My father and mother are arguing. My dad feels like mom's not spending enough time planning his birthday. She's not making a big deal about it. So one evening, I'm on the phone with Sue again, and Dad comes off down the hall and he says, "Get off the phone." I hang up the phone and we argue. And I look at him and I say, "You only care about yourself. You only care about your birthday." My dad goes stone cold silent. And he looks at me and he says, "I would never speak to my father that way." And he turns and he walks away. We don't speak for 2 weeks. As the weekend of his birthday approaches, my mom says, "You have to apologize. It's his birthday." And I do. But I really don't understand why he was so upset with me, other than I was being an egocentric 16-year-old. But I do know I have hurt him very deeply. 32 years earlier, on Saturday, March the 12th, 1938, Hitler marched his troops into Austria, the Anschluss. March the 12th, 1938 was my grandfather's 50th birthday. And plans had been in the works for weeks. It was also my father's senior year in high school, and there was going to be a senior showcase that night, and he had been chosen to be master of ceremonies. So the plan was that my grandparents, my father's sister Litzy, her boyfriend, and my father's girlfriend Edith were all going to attend the show. And then the family would go into Vienna, into the center of town, to a nightclub called Bodega to celebrate Opa's birthday. Well, that Friday, March the 11th, it was clear that the government of Austria was about to collapse. And despite being warned by the police not to approach the center of the city, Dad had made Edith a promise that he would pick her up after work that afternoon. So as his school day ended, he worked his way around the Danube Canal, the Ringstrasse, all the way across town to Edith's office. And then, with the bravado of youth, the two of them decided that they were going to go to the central square, the plaza where the Stephankirche, the big cathedral, is, to see what was going on. When they approached the square, they saw two mobs on either side of the square. On one side were the few remaining loyal Austrians shouting. On the other side were those Austrians who had already pledged their allegiance to the Third Reich, shouting back. By 6 p.m., it became clear that things were not going well, and Dad sensed trouble, and he said, "We have to go." He got Edith home safely, and then walking through the streets with people shouting and faces, distorted faces, and people crying, he approached his own apartment building at 21A Tauberstrasse, only to meet his father coming down the stairs, his face white as a sheet. And he was going out to buy cigarettes, and he said to my father, "It's all over." The next morning, Saturday, March the 12th, my grandfather insisted that he go into town to see what had become of his cousin and his porcelain store. And my dad said, "You're not going alone." The streets had become a sea of swastikas, and it didn't take very long for them to hear calls of "you dirty Jew," and much worse. When they arrived at the porcelain store, they saw that the SS had already taken over. One of the employees had secretly become a member of the stormtroopers, and it was no longer his cousin's store. 6 months later, my grandparents would be standing on a train platform. Within 2 days, they would say goodbye to their children. My father would be boarding a train to board a boat to Shanghai, China. His sister would be off to England to be a nanny. By 1940, they were reunited in China and lived through the war years under sometimes very desperate and miserable conditions. But by 1947, life had began to normalize. But once again, the family began to disperse due to the political situation. The communists were taking over China. My parents would not arrive in this country until 1953. And through those many, many, many years apart, there were hundreds of letters, many containing birthday wishes saying, "Oh, a happy and a healthy birthday once again. And oh, how we wish we could be together just to celebrate your birthday." I never did get to celebrate a birthday with my grandfather. He died in 1954 when I was 3 months old. My father said the war took its toll. It seems to me that we really were able to celebrate once again after 1974, when the family moved to Connecticut, and we took every opportunity to do so. I remember my father sitting with 3 beautiful grandchildren on his knees in the house they built in Redding, Connecticut on his 65th birthday. His 75th birthday, we gathered once again, and we presented him with a painting of his grandfather's synagogue that was destroyed on Kristallnacht. And then we read from Dr. Seuss, "You're only old once." And for his 85th birthday, once again, we gathered to celebrate. And pictures of his childhood in Vienna were flashing on the large screen TV, fading in and out, being replaced by pictures of modern day Vienna that we had taken in that summer of 2005. And Dad just looked around the room and he smiled and he said, "Hitler failed." Thank you.
Before I had heard Jean's story, it never occurred to me that people had escaped to China, that there were a group of people there. It's amazing. Thank you.